Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this call this morning. Um, it's so cool to see people from all over the place: Burundi, Zambia, South Africa, Uganda. And it's really exciting to have you all here. I think as Zawani, we we don't want this to be our thing. We want it really to be an ecosystem gathering where we all come together. I think we've all been called by God. We're on this call because we feel we've been called into the specific faith and work ministry and some aspect of it. And I think my encouragement to you this morning is just that in 1 Corinthians 3, God speaks about us being co-workers in God's service. And so we're all essentially each other's colleagues. And then it also in Psalm 133, it reminds us that where we dwell in unity, God commands a blessing. And I think it's so exciting that we actually have that opportunity to work together, to have a united vision for our continent, and then that God actually will then command a blessing for our continent. And imagine getting to heaven one day and we can see how we were part of that blessing that He commanded for our continent. So yeah, I want to encourage us all to come with a heart to bless someone else today. I know we all have loads of work to do and targets to meet and things we need to report on to our team, but I'd really love to encourage us all to just think of how much more God can do when we use our prayers, our connections, our content, our resources to bless someone else. So I would love to encourage you to listen today with the lens, if you can listen with the lens, of how to serve somebody else on this call with what you have in your hands. Whether they're in your immediate region or if they're far away. I think we all have something that can bless somebody else today and just create that unity that we know that God loves. So first we are going to go into a quick breakout session. Jason will send us into breakout rooms just to say hi to a few people and just have a quick chat and catch up. And then after that, we're going to hear from Juliet and Keegan from Synapis, and then after that from Floyd, who represents Trigger, just so that we can hear a little bit about some of the organizations in our ecosystem and what they're doing and what's happening and how we can pull together and help them.
Welcome back into this the main room. I hope you have had some good interaction with each other, gotten to know, share, maybe even gotten to form some connections in ways you can support each other and follow up with each other after this. That's the biggest objective. That's one of the biggest reasons why we have this space, why we gather. So listen to each other, pray for each other, follow each other up after this, connect someone to someone who can be of benefit for them. It's what we hope happens and emerges from these calls. But we want to just spend some time. We'll always do a slight deep dive into one or two of the organizations that are part of this community each time we get a chance to meet, just so we can get a bit more in-depth understanding of what are you up to, how can we join with you, how can we partner with you, how can we support you. And one of the first people we want to listen today is Keegan. Keegan is part of Forge. He is currently not seated in the continent. He's seated in the States right now and in a difficult time zone for him to be on the call, but he managed to record something. And both Keegan and Juliet, who we'll listen to, is also part of the Forge team from Synapis. Will be sharing next. So Jason, over to you to play Keegan's video as we get to just hear from him a little bit. And then after that, get to hear from Juliet.
Good morning. My name is Keegan White. I am joining virtually today as it is in the very early hours of the morning here in the US, but did not want to miss out on the awesome opportunity to just share a little bit more about the Forge Global Summit with just a great group of ecosystem builders there in South Africa and abroad. I want to share a little bit about my background before jumping into this. So I work for an organization called Synapis. We train and accelerate faith-driven entrepreneurs in East Africa primarily. So Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. America. We offer early stage training curriculum, acceleration and advisory services, access to capital, and a robust alumni network. We've trained nearly 4,000 entrepreneurs since our inception in 2011. And one of the awesome responsibilities we have is stewarding the Forge Global Summit alongside our host, Zawani, and Relative Impact, and a number of other capacity building organizations that are involved in that local steering committee at Forge, and then also our other partners, Heron Ventures and Angelo. So first, I'd just love to share a little bit more about what we're trying to do at Forge and why I'm talking to you today about what we're trying to build. So Forge actually started as a conversation back in 2021 in Nairobi, Kenya, amongst a group of leaders that were training entrepreneurs, investing in entrepreneurs, trying to figure out the governance landscape for how entrepreneurs navigate a variety of different obstacles in emerging and frontier markets. And we really came together to say, what does it look like to come alongside the men and women called by God to grow companies for his glory? And what are the different inputs that are needed in order to see that entrepreneur take off and scale and really reach their potential? And I think, as we all know on this call, that takes a lot more than training, takes a lot more than capital, takes a lot more than good governance, that there's just a variety of different elements that need to be poured into that entrepreneur to see that potential realized. And so that conversation really led to the creation of a global movement now called Forge. And so the very next year, we gathered about 50 attendees from 15 different countries in Cairo, Egypt, really talking again about that same different model. We then hosted it in Nairobi, Kenya. Saw 150 people from almost 30 nations there. And last year in Cluj-Napoca, Romania, we hosted and had 275 attendees from nearly 40 nations. And so we've seen this uptick in what God is doing internationally across the globe in emerging and frontier market nations, and how he is raising up very talented and gifted men and women, and also a community around them that is allowing them to really reach some of their potential. And so our whole goal at Forge is to talk about those very communities and ecosystems all around the world, learn from each other, grow from one another, be able to create relationships across continents to really be able to accelerate the movement of Christ-centered entrepreneurs around the world. And that's what we're all about at Forge. And so I'm excited to share with you a little bit about why we're coming to Cape Town, South Africa. I don't have to tell you all that it's no secret that South Africa has one of the most robust faith and work ecosystems in the world. You guys have been thinking about these things. You have the language. You are living it out practically, whether or not you're an investor, a capacity builder, a philanthropist, a government official, a church leader, maybe even something else, or you're wearing multiple hats, but you're really having really intentional conversations about how do we support entrepreneurs in our context. And so the reason we're coming to Cape Town is to learn from that very community, and also share with what we're seeing in other similar communities around the world, in Latin America, in Asia, in Europe, in the US, in multiple other parts around the world. And so we want to come together, have a really thoughtful dialogue about how do we build those best practice models together? How do we see ecosystems of amazing entrepreneurs and organizations working together to grow companies through enterprise development for the glory of God's kingdom? And so as I'm just scrolling through our website here, I just want to take a second to show you a little bit about what are some of the key elements that Forge is rooted in. And really, it's values of love, unity, humility, and trust. We want to come together to think, pray, and dream. How do we bring economic, social, and spiritual renewal to our communities through enterprise developments? And we want to be inspired by what you're building in South Africa, but we also want to refresh that ecosystem. This is not just another conference. It's a chance to collaborate, to create, to serve, inspire, to learn across other models in emerging and frontier markets that are trying to replicate some of the very things that you are building in South Africa, and maybe even give you new insights to reinvigorate the work that you have walking alongside entrepreneurs. And so we would love for you to join us at the end of October in Cape Town to really come and see what this is all about. What is God doing in other markets around the world? I hope that you're refreshed, encouraged, that you come away with new collaborations and part of a global movement of what God is doing through entrepreneurs around the world. So thanks a lot for your time this morning, and we hope to see you in Cape Town in October.
That was lovely. We thank Keegan in absentia for just being able to share that video with us, and hopefully inspire us as we think about a space where we hope as many of us can gather together and meet in person as we continue to have these conversations, and how we can come alongside entrepreneurs and support them to thrive for kingdom impact, even in our different spaces and contexts. But we're also excited to have Juliet, who's part of that team and has been part of the Forge team for quite a while now. with us in person. She's based in Uganda, Kampala. She is part of the Synapis team. We claim her as our own also in Ziwani, and many other teams claim her as their own. And it's lovely to just see a lady who is passionate about this ecosystem, passionate about entrepreneurs thriving on this continent, being able to have her on the call with us. So, Julie, over to you to just share a little bit more detail with us.
Thank you, Mandy. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Like you've heard, my name is Juliet Casita. I work with Synapis. I'll again just highlight what Mwangi just shared, that claiming across the different places goes along to talk about what even Forge is about, the collaborations that happen across different players, support organizations. It's just not about Synapis. Forge is a global movement, like my colleague shared. We just want to bring together entrepreneurs, entrepreneur support organizations. We have investors, we have philanthropists, we have different people into academics, and we believe, like Keegan said, when men and women, when these ecosystems actually come together, each one of us has a role to play in the entrepreneurship, but most especially bringing God's kingdom here on earth. And like everyone has come to believe, for us, our goal is to just get into moments of seeking the Lord together. How can we build strategic, friendships together? What are some of those best practices when it comes to entrepreneurship in different ecosystems across nations, across continents? We are talking about supporting emerging and frontier markets. What are some of those best practices that we can actually bring together? These are conversations, like we said, conversations with thought leaders that have been called by God. I think that's the emphasis that we get to see across all players and across people like you, people who are in the faith and work aspects. How can we navigate some of the challenges, some of the different obstacles that we have actually met alongside? If I'm an entrepreneur, there are obstacles I've met. If I'm a capacity builder or investor, there are obstacles that we are meeting. But how can we actually come together and explore those and look at supporting faith-driven entrepreneurs in our communities or in our nations, actually transform those nations? We invite you, Keegan has mentioned, Forge is hosted in different countries. It's not just about, the stewards, but it's hosted in different countries. And many times we are driven by the learnings that happen at every time we meet, in terms of how can we be able to support the entrepreneurs. If you're out there, if you've been working or collaborating with other people, I believe this is a movement that you want to be a part of. God is raising his people, and those people are men and women like the ones on the call today. God is raising community around entrepreneurs, around investors, around different players. He's creating relationships, and he desires that we come together in relationships that are Christ-centered and can support Christ-centered entrepreneurship. But he's also calling us in a space of being able to learn as ecosystem builders so that we can build and encourage each other. I think for me, I just wanted to highlight that Forge is happening in South Africa. South Africa is growing when it comes to the faith and workspace, and we would want to collaborate and connect with other players and understand how we can actually come together and partner to drive this global, meaningful impact around entrepreneurship. I'll take any questions around Forge if there are any, or any insights or any comments for us to be able to support you along the way. I've seen the comments. Today is the last date of registration for the early bird. You don't want to miss that. So check the chat box, kindly register. Even if you need more information, this is an opportunity for you to engage and meet like-minded people and even solve some of the prayer points. In my group, we had some prayer points, and I believe there are people in Forge that would be able to address some of those. Thank you so much, Mwangi, and over to you again.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for sharing these details and information with us. Anyone with a question for Julie before we jump into breakout and just think a little bit more about how we can have more moments like these of collaboration? Anyone with any clarification they need around Forge, around how they can be a part of it, how they can be involved in one way or another? Cool. Jace, I think we're going to go into breakouts, and in our breakout groups, we're going to be thinking through. Forge is just one example of a way in which different ecosystem. Oh, I think there's a raised hand from Joshua Mayanja. Joshua, over to you, please. Go ahead and ask.
Thank you, Juliet. You said you just mentioned. I'm just getting to learn that today is the last day of the early birds. I would really want to secure myself a ticket. I don't know whether that means also payment is is the deadline is today. So that's what I wanted to know. But I just wanted to have myself a ticket.
Over to you, Julie.
Yes, thank you, Joshua. Yeah, like I mentioned, today is the deadline for registration for the early bird. My colleague has also shared a link there. I think the best thing for you, Joshua, is just to click that link right now, so that you can be able to get the code for the early bird, and the rest of it is going to happen after you click on that link. I think also being on this call today and this morning and asking that question, will definitely take note of that. But yeah, 31st today, and I'm saying 31st midnight, before you get to 1st August is the deadline for the early bird. We still have other registrations, but you miss out on the discount of the early bird if you don't register today. Hope that helps. And you can also share your details, Joshua, so that we can get in touch with you even after this call.
Cool. Simbarashe.
Thank you, Mangi. Thank you, Juliet, for just touching on the event. We'd be very, very keen to attend. I just wanted to find out, is there any recommended accommodation, or is that also on the link that's included there?
Yes. Thank you, Simba. I'll stop at that. And excited that that's a good question. Yes, we as you get to actually register on that link, we kind of share all those other details. One of the things that we are doing is that when you express interest at the registration, we have someone that is going to get in touch with you if you have any questions. Could it be accommodation, all other logistics? So I would highly encourage that you actually make use of the link, and you'll be able to see all those registrations. As you do the registrations, there are options for different areas as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will encourage Julie to also share her contacts or her email somewhere down here in the chat, so that if anyone has more questions as they are hoping to join the conference in October, they can also just reach out to her for any queries they may have. So we're going to jump into breakout rooms, and the breakout rooms are slightly different from the first ones we were in. This time it's going to be in our regions. And the conversation I want us to have in our different regions is going to be one for East Africa, one for West Africa, one for Southern Africa and Southern Africa, plus all those who are not in the continent have been combined together. And in those breakouts, we're going to have a conversation around what would it look like to create more, whether small or big, moments of collaboration with each other. For an example of a collaboration moment where multiple of us in the ecosystem have come together to bring this conference to life. But what did it look like in a smaller scale, or if God gives us a vision for a bigger scale, to just have moments of collaborating together in our different regions? Let's have that conversation for a few minutes, and hopefully something interesting is backed from that conversation as we engage with each other. Welcome back. Again, the conversation that has just begun in the breakout is not enough. 10 minutes is not sufficient time to build robustly on that. But our hope is that we can start thinking and challenging ourselves. One of the things I was challenging the group at the end of before Jason cut us short is find someone to buy a coffee in the next coming days. Find someone to jump on a quick Zoom call, have a tea, a coffee within the next coming days, to just ask, tell me more about what you do and how we can come alongside you. I think that's a lovely starting point from where a lot gets birthed out of, from that just heart of, tell me a little more, I'd love to listen. Cool. And so we want to listen a little more to someone else on the call, and that is Trigger Ventures. We are excited to be able to have them. We have enjoyed partnering with Floyd and Co. And the Trigger team over the last several years. And they have been a lovely partner for Zwane, and we're excited to share what they're doing with many of us here and on this call. Floyd is based in the Cape. It is a co-leader of Trigger Ventures. And Floyd, over to you. We would love to hear more about yourself and Trigger and what you're up to, and how many others on this call can come alongside you and join the vision that God is giving to you there. Over to you, Floyd. Floyd, you're mute.
Richard, sorry.
There you go.
Mwangi, thank you so much for allowing me to share. This feels to everyone in the call, it feels to me more like a refreshment day. So really just sharing, I'll be sharing a bit of our work, and from what you will see from it is I'm quite excited about entrepreneurs, but I will obviously make a disclaimer to say, you know, this is a family meeting, so entrepreneurs themselves are not changing the world by themselves. There's all of us here who have a role to play. And for us, it's just this one specific way in which we've been doing it. So just want to share a bit about this, and hopefully that it's an encouragement that you guys can even think about ways you could partner with us and partner, most importantly, with God, with what he's doing, and hopefully we'll make it to the end and he will say, well done, good and faithful servant, to all of us. So just, yeah, if you'd allow me to share a bit about Trigger, and if there's any questions or comments, please do let me know later. I designed the slide deck in sort of 4 ways. One, the history, for those that don't know what Trigger is, and the theology part, which I won't touch a bit more. I think most of it is sort of agreed theology amongst this space, which you already might have a spin-off on the language, but it's quite similar. Methodology, a bit of how we do it, how we run the accelerator and all the other programs, and a bit of our impact. And I think just to show you, to say, look at what God has done, more than I think just anything else, just really celebrating him and through entrepreneurs and the impact that we doing in South Africa and in Africa as well. So a bit about Trigger. You can see the slide deck, right? So this is a community. Let me just make sure that this actually moves, beloved. There you go. So Trigger is an entrepreneur ecosystem that supports founders inspired by their faith to address some of Africa's most pressing problems. This morning I was reading on my quiet time Ephesians 4:29, and I was quite intrigued by how it starts. So it says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such as good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." Thinking about that aspect of, but only for such is good for building up. Working with entrepreneurs is already very difficult. They face tremendous amount of pressure on a daily basis. Our hope and trust for this ecosystem at Trigger is that they will find it life-giving. That as you think about, a war, within a war, there's the soldiers, and then there's the campsite where there's weapons and all the resources that actually is needed for that war, the technology and so on. Our hope is that we are that technology, we are the resourcing place, we are the, you name it. And then right after they load, they go back to battle. And the battle here is, the evil one. So again, to saying through entrepreneurs, we get to restore a lot of brokenness in our time. And if we can do that by building solid, redemptive businesses, we're pushing away darkness bit by bit. So that is the war that we're actually fighting. And what better way to do it if we don't have a life-giving ecosystem, almost that actually will probably fall flat. So about 8 years ago, Trigger was initially founded out of an organization called Praxis in the US. The gentleman who founded it, Philip, who transitioned off this year, had a strong desire to, again, see God use work not as a traditional way in which you show what you would make sense in the next slide in a bit of what I'm actually talking about, but seeing, this idea of using work as an embodiment for the gospel and not something that is separate from it. So the name trigger is a Greek word for chariot. So we found it on this scripture where the Israelites were taking ground in the promised land, and there was this interesting picture or this scripture. It says they were driving out, or the Lord was with Judah. He drove out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley because they had chariots of iron. Now, chariots are obviously an ancient language, which was a horse, which, to put it differently, to say what chariots of iron represented, or what a chariot represented then, was civilization and resources. So the reason why Judah couldn't take hold of this land that they were given, obviously there's one part, there's a faith element to it, but here it clearly puts it to say they were less resourced. So there's something to be said about building civilization, building resources that can actually stand the test of time. And chariots were that for battle. And for us, to say the ventures that we want to support are those ones that want to, again, be chariots or signs of resources that could be used in our time. If I had a question, maybe if you wouldn't mind engaging with me on this one, you could probably put on the chat to say, for those that operate, maybe more for the South African audience, to say, when there's a crisis or something tomorrow, whether it's welfare or whether it's war, which organization do you know that will be the first respondents to actually respond to that crisis? I'm keen to hear your responses as you probably put it on the chat for a second. I won't engage in directly, but as I'm talking, please do put it down. But I think it's probably then to make a point to say that there is the name of the organization. I won't mention it until maybe I say it on the chat. But the reason why that organization probably is known for that is because they've built a chariot. They've built, a resource hub of support, then that will stand the test of time. And by the way, at this point, nobody actually cares about the religion of the founder, of the people serving them. There's a good chance that all of us in this room, at some point in time, have given money to this organization because of the need that they're actually serving. So again, to say there isn't actually an excuse why Christians can't serve the same need and still be faith-driven. But however, I think we've lost that role in community and in society. Let me just actually see, because I'm sharing slides. So there you go, gift of the givers. That's the one. But the point being made to say, there actually isn't the reason why we can't build ventures that can actually stand the test of time in the same way chariots would. So that's where Trigger comes from. And then this is a bit of a theology. So on the left is a gentleman called Reinhard Bunker. He was a German evangelist born in the 40s. And you'll see there's a blue line in between him and Nelson Mandela on the right. Nelson Mandela in this case would represent the political space, so to speak. And then next to him is Johann Rupert's father, Anton Rupert, who is known to have built one of the, I think, biggest economic empires of his time. And often for us as ecosystem builders, even in this room, this is what we're fighting against, right? To say this line in between actually should not be separated. In other words, the secular and the sacred divide should not exist, because all work, we understand, is actually sacred. For entrepreneurs, we've actually seen that this is actually, it looks simple, but it's actually very difficult. Because on a Sunday, they would go to a church and maybe, given an example of whatever the sermon series could be, they'll be like, yes, God, I hear you. Amen. Praise you, brother. Keep going. Amen. Let's go. But when they get back home, they have to think about payroll in a week's time, and clients aren't actually paying up. And there's actually all these other real life decisions that they have to make, but can't think of a theology that actually supports them there. So a big part of think what we want to do or are doing is actually helping them see first that this work is equally important, and it is an embodiment of the gospel. And then two, to say, actually, this is probably the best place to evangelize the world, creating good, meaningful jobs that restore people back into the marketplace, whose dignity gets restored, whose families get to, actually see that they can actually have a potential of some sort. And through that, we really believe this is probably the biggest barrier to solving people to actually see there's actually a God who actually cares about us. And don't get me started about the statistics that we have in South Africa. I think one speaker had said to say, Africa is not a problem to be solved, it's a story to be told. And we believe that that is actually really true. Speaking about the ethos and then methodology, and then I'll close on the impact just in a bit. To say, Trigger, we really believe, and I think a big part of this ecosystem always joy meeting people from different countries, and it doesn't get embodied better than this. To say, our accelerator program, we believe is cross-sector, but we believe it will actually work better if we actually see how the story ends. And so it's this type of community, a nation, tribe, people standing before the throne of God. And this is what we want to build towards, to say, the reality is each and every culture, I mean, it's said that Africa has over 1,000 cultures, probably can't even be named or was reported accurately. To say every culture has a pain point. Now, for us to support entrepreneurs that are solving different cultures' pain points, we really have to be radically different from just a normal ecosystem. And also, we actually have to hold hands with a whole bunch of other ecosystems, because the problems is much more sophisticated that one organization can't necessarily solve it. But again, when we do it, it needs to be a community that doesn't just look like Windhoek in Namibia, or Stellenbosch in South Africa, or Accra in Ghana. It needs to combine all these together. And as we do more of that, we think we'll actually be more disruptive, a bit more to what Sinapis had actually just shared. The methodology, so we borrow a lot on the Praxis methodology of how to actually do this. So we look at this frame called the redemptive frame, so 3 ways of doing work. So really just pushing in from internal exploitative. So this is obviously the idea that work is actually disruptive and actually really just exploiting whatever it is. At basic level, we all agree as Christians to say there's an ethical way of doing work, which is we don't rob anybody, we pay our taxes, and we actually obviously show up on time when things are actually needed. But we realize that me and you would agree to say in Africa, not everything works the way it should. It's not Eden yet. So because of that, we need agents of change who want to put aside, in the same way Jesus put the kingdom of heaven aside to come down here, to actually sacrifice getting into a space saying, God, would you use me to build a venture that will stand the test of time, that even if I'm not there, that you will continue restoring and bringing your kingdom through this venture after my time. That is what we think redemptive entrepreneurship can actually do, because we're actually not thinking of building the returns for now, but actually what could actually come out in the future. And this is the ecosystem that we've built over the past 8 years, the Far Right being the flagship program that we take founders through, very curated for 8 months. And then we had realized that out of that, there's been a great need for the next generation to want to be in entrepreneurship, learning more about how it actually looks like. So we run the academy, which again is also curated in all spheres, and the next gen founders is sort of like a 6-month expression. Some exciting news out of this, probably to celebrate. You guys probably hearing it first, to say for the longest time we've been wanting to think about how do we resource entrepreneurs from a capital standpoint, because most early stage entrepreneurs are actually looking for that. And probably in the next year or two, we'll actually start rolling out what will probably be known as a trigger fund, which will actually support these entrepreneurs to actually build without the idea of trying to get capital from a place which maybe the agenda is very different, but hopefully that we can actually start doing that from internally. So I think that's a praiseworthy moment going on forward. This is our impact. Specifically, maybe I'll show you a bit more of the accelerator one. because I think that's the flagship. So we've had 88 ventures go through the accelerator. Combined of all of those is 2.4 billion rands in revenue. So every year we run a sort of a survey to actually track these things. And there's been 1,502 new jobs created. And the 59 million in funding from our ecosystem, we actually through obviously now the birth of the fund, we're hoping that will be great. This is the biggest excitement and praiseworthy moment. 89.5 of those ventures actually survive, and most of whom operated from COVID and still are alive. We don't think this is just a meticulous, well-planned because they have MBAs and so on, but we think God's hand is over these guys. And we really do think that if this is done well, the world we know is already looking at Africa, but I think the story we tell of what God is doing through here, through the ingenuity that creates here, or that belongs here, is phenomenal. So thank you so much, I think, for allowing us to share. And we hope this is encouraging to you. Entrepreneurship has been a vehicle and a strong heart for us. And we hope that in different ways you could continue in other way. If there's churches that you think we should be in, please let us know. To similar to what the Forge guys have done, we'll be there at Forge. So looking forward to seeing you there in the same week. I think we're having the Trigger conference towards the end of that week. So if you are able to do both, let us know. If you need a ticket, also do let us know. Would love to join in with you. Thank you so much for listening to us. I trust this was an encouragement to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Floyd. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Very exciting. Just real quick, anyone who may have a question for Trigger, something they'd like to know about what they're doing, how they can learn more about Trigger, how they can be a part of something happening there. Anyone who has a question? Would like to give you this opportunity, wouldn't like to lock you out. Okay. Thank you, Floyd, and team for sharing that presentation. At this point, we want to. Oh, sorry, I think a hand has now come up. Simba, go for it.
Thanks, Mundi. Floyd, I just wanted to check the event in October. Unfortunately, my network dropped off, so apologies. It might be a recap for everyone else. I just wanted to find out what's happening at that event in October. I think it's pretty close to the other PCI.
That's correct. Yes. So so Forge is starting on the week of the, what is that? Is that the 26th, 27th? So towards the end of that week, on the 31st, Simba, we're having a conference or annual conference. We usually have about 200 to 250 people, mostly alumni, and this is where we get to celebrate our fellows who've been part of the accelerator. So you get to hear them pitch and connect with over 20 or 200 plus alumni within the ecosystem. So it's a big celebration for us. We do it once a year. Usually we used to do it at Boshinda, but this time it'll be at Laborie. Accommodation and all those things are also available at the same place, quite a big wine estate. So the point or the goal for us is we'll probably from Forge straight into Trigger conference. If anything, we're hoping to be more excited coming out of that conference into ours. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Floyd. I'll reach out in the background just to chat about that a little. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Simba.
Mwangi, Lubabalo, you have a question?
Lubabalo, any question from your end? Feel free to unmute and jump in.
All right, thanks, Floyd, for the presentation. Now I just want to find out, is there somewhere where we can join, do you apply to be part of Trigger, and yeah, how does it work? Thanks.
Yes, Lubabalo, you do apply. Can I say share screen and then I'll just show you that picture real quick. And so you do apply. What I would suggest you would do, so depending on if you want to send people to whatever program, so say for example, someone has a business established average revenue, say 2 million rands, and say there's a team or two, would encourage them to apply for the accelerator. So I think I'll put a link on our website at the chat, and then you can have a look at that. And then if you know of a youngster, a young professional, or even somebody in whatever age that is, just transitional from corporate, but I need of a sort of like they need access to a mentor or a like-minded community. We run a 6-month online course, so they can actually do it from anywhere in the world technically, and they can apply for that as well. In fact, I think the applications for that are open until the 12th of August. But again, I'll put the link in the chat. Those are the two main programs that we usually run and do allow for people to apply to. Hope that answers.
I think that answers. And Floyd, if you can put an email someone can reach out to you on, and a link to your website on the chat, just in case people have a few more questions, I think that'll be helpful. But also in the follow-up email that we will send after this call, at a point you will receive contact details on Trigger, on Forge, information from them, so that if you have more questions, you can reach out to them, but also just links that you can click to follow to their respective websites for more information. Quick one as we start coming towards an end. If anyone has any upcoming events, Forge has highlighted theirs, Trigger has highlighted theirs. If there's anyone else who wants to mention something upcoming that they're a part of, that they would like people to be a part of, please start putting those in chat and we will be able to share that with you. But there's also a WhatsApp group for the ecosystem. It's not one of those where conversations are spamming every day, right, left, and center, but it's one of those where we get to share interesting events, insights that could help us as an ecosystem. Jason has put a link in the chat for how to join the WhatsApp group, and I think there's a QR code coming on the screen right now that you could scan. If you're not part of that WhatsApp group already, please scan, join. It's a good place to get information. It's a good place to ask questions. Do you know anyone in this region who's involved in this kind of question, and someone in that WhatsApp group is happy to connect you or to answer you. So it's a helpful space to be a part of. So if you're not, please click to join that ecosystem WhatsApp group. And if anyone has an event, put it in chat. So as we come towards an end, I want to thank Forge and Trigger for sharing. We continue to get excited and learning more about what people are up to. But is there anyone at this point who would like to share an upcoming event that they'd love us to be aware of and ways we can partner with them or be a part of it? This is a moment to share that. Any exciting upcoming things that people would like us to be aware of? Simba, go for it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mwangi. And thank you as well to all the organizers for this event. I think it's a great opportunity to link and be connected with the ecosystem for what God is doing here on the continent and the world at large through business. I have just shared a event that we do. So I'm coming from ProCycles, and what it stands for is Professional Disciples, which is essentially a environment where we're trying to encourage people to realize that God cares just as much about your 9 to 5 as he does about the time that you spend at church or at your small group where you connect in smaller spaces to share on what God is doing in your life, but that he actually cares about where you actually work as well. And what we do is we host monthly events where we bring in a speaker to share in their life, both from a career perspective, but how their faith and their work coincide and exist together. We've just started to launch online events. And so our first one is actually from SIBS, who I'm sure many of you on this call know. And we will be having that event next week, Tuesday. I've put in a little poster in the chat. We'll be talking about gospel-centered vocation, just touching on this idea of pushing against the dualism that exists within the Christian space today. And please do, if you want to be able to attend, feel free to join. I'll also post a link to the site where you can then join and RSVP for the event. There's also a WhatsApp group if you want to keep in tabs with what we are doing on a monthly basis and the in-person events that we have as well. You can join that as well. So I'm going to just slot the link in there. And thanks again to the team for putting this together.
We want to thank Floyd and Juliet, and in his absence, Keegan, just for sharing. But also thank you to all of you who are here today. I hope you were encouraged by your co-workers in the faith and work space. And yes, please remember to join that WhatsApp group. That also helps you to find someone to have a coffee with this week, or a tea, or a dawa, my favorite. So yes, I hope everybody has a great day, and thanks again for sharing, and I hope to see you all soon in person at Forge or at Trigger or at ProCycles. We can all meet up somewhere. Thanks everybody.